Jupiter Broadcasting presents this show in mega stereo sound. This episode of the Linux Action Show brought to you in part by GoDaddy.com. Use the promo code Linux and save yourself some cash. And of course, from donations of people that are, it's like people get donated, you know? And it's free. It's free. It's tax exempt.
No, it's not.
No, when you donate people, it is. It's
donate people.
Right.
But
You can't, Chris, you can't put a worth on person.
This week on the Linux Action Show, it's a review of Ubuntu 12.04. Does Canonical have a winner on its hands? Or is this new release a STINKY-McSTINKER? Tune in to find out. Plus, a heavyweight video editor might be heading to Linux in a matter of weeks. We've got all the details and so much more! All this week on the Linux Action Show. And welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 21, Episode 6. My name is Brian, that guy's Chris.
Hey there, B-Man. Check it out. The Pebble Watch runs Linux.
It does.
Yeah, this is really awesome. In fact, it runs all kinds of open source stuff on the back end. It started up on Kickstarter. It's got a 14.4. I don't want to overshoot this here. 14.4, I got to realize we're dealing with a watch, by 168 pixel display, black and white e-paper. So sort of the e-ink display, kind of like the Kindle.
It's a little e-ink.
Which
is brilliant for a watch. I mean, that's what you want.
It's got apps on there. It's got Bluetooth 2.1. It's got a glare-less screen. It's got a vibrating motor. I believe it has a little Debian under the hood. I could be wrong, but
because you want your watch to vibrate. Like I've always said that. That's why I don't wear watches. You'll notice. See my watch here?
Right.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You know why?
Because
none of them vibrate.
Right.
If I'm putting something on my wrist, it better shake the crap out of my hand, or I'm taking that sucker off.
Well, I don't know why you'd exactly want it to vibrate, but I do like.
Maybe here's the thing. You use that to it's got like a little Bluetooth and whatnot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
like
you connect it up to your phone.
Right. Yeah.
So phone notifications, email notifications. So literally, you get a text message, you go like this, bam.
So this is interesting. Canonical reports.
Makes sense.
Canonical's involved with this. Canonical. So the other thing too is the development environment to create apps for this phone is like a Canonical's Ubuntu with libraries and packages just for this little phone.
And you can build
thing.
Python apps for it.
And and it uses a toolchain of Code Sorcery, GCC for compiling, OpenOCD for working with the JTAG, B-Man, and GDB, the GNU debugger, and all that kind of stuff living inside this little tiny watch. Graphics were done with GIMP and Image Magic.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks great. The graphics are very minimalist, but then again, it's basically just you could put anything on there you want, really. I mean, really, that's the cool bit.
Yeah, and
that's way cool.
It could be the ultimate sync up with your Linux desktop thing, or maybe like remote control or something like that. And the e-ink means it should get good battery life.
Dude.
Oh my gosh,
Tight.
big show.
Tight.
So for those of you who aren't watching live, we do this over at jblive.tv, 10 a.m. on Sundays.
Or 10:30 a.m. if some big giant chunk of the internet goes down in Seattle and Los Angeles right at 10 a.m.
I think Seattle was a little hungover from 420 Day. It just took them a little while to catch up. And then the internet broke.
You don't get hungover from 420 Day.
Oh.
Yeah.
You mean it is...
That you're thinking of St. Patty's Day.
I should look into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're back though. So thanks to everybody who stuck around on the live stream. Coming up in this week though, we've got our Ubuntu 12.04 review. We've got the news, and Matt's going to join us with an awesome how-to that'll show you how to easily and for free do remote desktop support across platforms using native Linux software.
Across platforms, you say?
Yes.
It can't be done.
It can be done, and it will be done in today's how-to segment, Brian.
Rock and roll.
Before we get to all that, though, we should say good morning to the fine folks over at GoDaddy.com.
Fine.
And
you need to move yourself out of the way. I don't want to see you with Danica Patrick's hair.
I'm here as Danica Patrick today, Brian, to tell you about some of the great deals that we have here over at GoDaddy.com.
Just like a nightmare I had
last
night. But
look, you're sitting right next to me. See?
You just appeared out of nowhere with long flowing hair and be like, Brian, I'm Danica Patrick now.
I'm Danica Patrick, Brian, and I want to tell you about our great code.
You screwed up my whole night's sleep, man.
$5.99.
I had a groove.
Brian, as soon as I tell you about these great deals, I'll move on.
Tell me about it.
It's important. I didn't mean to wake you up. $5.99 COM8 gets you a .com for $5.99, up to 5 of those bad boys, each $5.99. It's just crazy. Also, though, if you've got big plans like me, and of course, when you have beautiful flowing hair like I do, you always have big plans. I also recommend you use the code SPRING8 because Spring8 will save you 15% on anything you check out at GoDaddy.com, like my brand new fancy arse. Don't forget, Brian, filterfree.me.
Filterfree.me.
Don't forget the name right as you're about to say it, Brian.
This is an adorable domain name,
It
too.
is. And look at this write-up I did last night. I just did this last night. FBI runs DNS for hundreds of thousands of users. Did you know about this?
I did, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you probably read it on filterfree.me.
Well, yeah. I can't stop hitting refresh on filterfree.me.
You were probably encouraged to go there because I used the checkout code SPRING8 to get 15% off my order when I checked out.
You know what I realized? If you want people to remember something, you're saying like an advertisement, like a code, embed yourself in their nightmares, and they will never forget the code. What you just did, I will never forget the codes now.
There you go. So, and actually, I think this looks pretty great. I'm actually pretty... For those of you not watching the video version, yeah. I have lined myself up perfectly with the beautiful Danica Patrick.
Here's the thing, dude. If you let your hair grow that long, you would have the hugest fro.
That would be great.
You would have a gigantic 1970s basketball player fro.
That would be really great.
You totally would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, thanks to GoDaddy for sponsoring this week's episode of the Linux Action Show.
Yes, yes.
All right, B-Man. We've got Android picks.
Yep.
We've got app picks. I mean, we've got all kinds. You wouldn't think you'd think, geez, we're just doing the 1204 review. That's enough. You don't need to do any more. Stop doing so much stuff. It's probably what you're thinking right now, right, Brian?
Are you stalling while you pull the links up for your Android app pick?
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Just do the Android app pick.
Well,
already.
we didn't have internet connection before the show started, so I didn't get all our links loaded up. So I had to kind of.
All right.
I had to stall.
I forgive you.
You were supposed to help me stall, though. All right. I want to talk about a podcast manager for Android.
I'm not your partner in this. I'm your adversary.
Oh, all right.
Right.
Okay. All right.
But just
fine,
for this show.
Fine.
Just for this show, it's Brian versus Chris.
I will keep that in mind.
Just through the app pick segments.
Oh. All right. Okay. That gives me less time to execute a plan.
Yeah,
I want to tell you.
I didn't come up with anything either.
Beyond Pod, the podcast manager for Android that's free and actually quite great. And it comes preloaded with a bunch of really good podcasts pre-suggested, and you can get the Jupiter Broadcasting shows in its search. And it's a very nice. I've used it for about 3 days, so
that's pretty good so far.
Well, so before I was using Dogcatcher, but I kept having issues with Dogcatcher downloading in the background when I didn't want it to. Beyond Pod I've not had that issue with it. I also just like the very get to business sort of UI element of it, and also
I do like business.
Business is good. I also like a very simple directory search where I don't really have to worry about the RSS feeds and stuff like that. I just plug in the show I want, hit search. And it goes and it gets them for me.
Fancy.
So, yeah, that's Beyond Pod, Podcast Manager, and it is free in the Android Marketplace.
Does it play video?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It does, but I don't know. You going to do that on your phone?
Well, I'm like on my tablet.
Oh, yeah, you could. You could totally load it on your tablet.
Yeah, throw it on my HTC Flyer. Use that for that. That'd be awesome.
Yep. You could, kind of like Dogcatcher, you can also set up rules so that you can say, when I am on Wi-Fi, go ahead and download all new shows. But if I'm on cellular, you can refresh the RSS list, but don't download the update. Which is kind of a nice thing for saving yourself some battery and cell data.
Saving battery and cell data.
All right, check it out. Beyond Pod Podcast Manager. Link is in the show notes as well.
You can check it out over on play.google.com for Google's Play thing.
Let's not go there. Let's not do that.
We're not going to do that?
Let's not do that. Let's not talk about that.
We're not going to talk about
Let's talk about our random distro pick this week there.
Yes!
B-Man.
So the random distro pick this week is slightly less random than in most weeks. In fact, we had picked a random distro pick, and then we thought about it. We looked at each other, and Chris says, Brian, Chris, we got to give this specific distro some love.
That's
right.
And
then Chris is over there and he says, Brian, says Chris.
Yeah.
Brian, we got to do that. You're absolutely right.
Are you stalling while I pull up
your thing. So we're picking Descent OS.
Descent OS.
Descent OS is built by dudes watching the Linux Action Show.
Brian 2040 in the chat right now is he's in there right now, and he is the keeper of Descent OS. There's also a bunch of other people he works with in the community on his website and things like that. So it's a very group Jupiter Broadcasting collaborative process.
Yeah, it's a collaborative process. You can go over to descentos.org for a new website they just put up and check out some screenshots, check out some more information on it. And here's the thing. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
It's very, very classy looking. It's a cool looking Debian Ubuntu based distribution, and definitely worth checking out. Currently it's utilizing GNOME 2, so if you're an old stodgy fart like a lot of us are, and you want to stay clear of the Unities and the GNOME shells and the KDE 4.18.9.7s of the world, you can just go to Descent OS, and it's not too shabby.
What's nice is it's a really nice cleaned up version of GNOME 2, modernized, basically like if one of the other distros out there had gotten serious about taking GNOME 2 and just
cleaning it up
and modernizing
embracing it.
This is what you would have. And
it's not some crazy fork like a cinnamon thing. It's just straight up GNOME 2, which is kind of cool. Now, one thing I want to point out.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to point this out for all the fine folks over at DistroWatch that are watching the show right now, because I know you are. Why is Descent OS not listed on DistroWatch? Now, I know there's probably some reasons for that. I'm just saying, you guys are probably making a mistake by not listing Descent OS right now on the rankings page. Distrowatch.org, or .com. I don't even remember their domain name.
They seem like they're not relevant anymore.
This is my point.
Yeah.
Now, either they can be relevant and have Descent OS there and gets lots of interesting traffic, or they can be not relevant. I mean,
guess.
it's up to them.
I don't know.
It's up to you guys.
I don't make
decide.
the rules.
I thought you made the rules.
Kind of do.
You
don't tell everybody because it freaks them out.
You're the rule dude.
Freaks them out.
You're like
also, I love Descent, the video game. So anything that's based on its namesake is okay with me. So,
yeah. Plus, the word Descent is kind of awesome.
Not an entirely.
I don't know what it has to do with a Linux distribution. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. Other than it is a cool word. It's kind of like saying Excalibur Linux. It's like, well, what would Excalibur have to do with Linux? Nothing, but it's a cool word, Descent.
And it's also been neat to sort of watch the evolution of this distro in the chat room, which has been really cool to watch Brian working on that and things like that. Brian with an I should point out. So don't get confused.
No, that's how you can tell us apart.
All right, B-Man, it's time for the Linux desktop app pick. What do we got this week?
This week, we are picking a very simple but handy little tool for those of us who use a lot of markup text.
Yeah.
And this is called retext. And basically what this is you do your markup text, and you hit a little button, and you can see a live preview of the text.
I use this a lot, and I have it loaded here, so I'll show it to you. I don't want to show you the secret sauce either. So retext is very, like, if you just need straight up text editing, it's not probably the one for you. But if you do work with Markdown, it's got this great feature where you can, like, all of our podcast show notes are originally written in Markdown, and then they go up on the site in HTML. And so you can do a lot of collaborative editing in this Markdown format that's really handy, and then one button preview, and it generates the HTML version of all of that. And you can
post that anywhere.
You can take this HTML code, and it's great, clean code. It's really good, clean code, or you can keep working on Markdown. Now, it's not a total gedit replacement, of course, because gedit.
Gedit does so much stuff.
Right,
but this is really if you're working in Markdown. That's what this is for.
Gedit has Markdown
syntax
plugins,
highlighting for so many languages, and gedit is a totally different deal. But sometimes it's nice to just have one little app off to the side that does something fast and does it well.
So that's Retext. It's a Qt-based app. It looks great on the GNOME desktop too. It's got full Markdown and Markdown Extended, whatever it's called, support. And it's a great, fast little editor. I like it a lot.
It's beauty.
Man.
It's a beauty.
All right, well, I try to think if there's anything else we have on top of the show.
There's nothing else.
All right, well, let's do the news.
Okie dokie. What's new in the news this week?
Oh, wow. Jeez. Wow. Brian. Whoa. All right, Brian, our top story on the news docket.
I figured the show's got the funk, right? So we're just...
it got all funked up.
It got funked up, yeah. So our things off. So you know what? Let's mix things up a little bit. Let's say words a little differently than we normally say them.
Let's get everybody riled up about Slackware for a moment, because the whole internet has been in a tizzy. Slackware's website has been down for a little while. In fact, I meant to check it. I meant to check it before we got on air. But
Slackware going down caused part of the internet to go down this morning.
Yeah, that might have been what it was. Okay, it's back up now. So here's the story. So this was an interesting deal. Is people in the community got worried because Slackware was down and there really was no word from the people that work on it.
Just went away.
I mean, mainly if people are familiar, Patrick, what is it, Volderding? Volkerding. He is like the long time.
He's the Slackware man.
He's the long time Slackware guy. Now there is a team that works with him, but when the website went down, it was sort of like this: is Slackware dead? What's going on with Slackware? And people started kind of jumping to conclusions and things like that tend to happen on the internet.
Yeah.
Eventually, members of the Slackware team came up and said, well, it's just simply a funding issue. We have some technical issues with our server. The server's down. We don't have the funds to fix it. But what's the problem? FTP's still up. The ancillary services around the distro are still up. What's the big deal? We ran Slackware for years without a website. You can go a couple of weeks without a website.
Slackware's got a different view of things than most people do.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the Slackware guys for that. They're like, what's the big deal? Dude, we have it all on DVDs.
Yeah.
If you want a copy, just ask us and we'll make sure it gets to you.
Yeah. So people then started jumping to conclusions in terms of the long-term viability of Slackware, and that's where things really started heating up this week.
Yeah, it's
some distro owners out there that are basing their distros off Slackware have sort of announced that they have intentions to jump ship to something else. This is interesting. This is a comment that was in Distro Watch Weekly. It seems Slackware and Mandriva have something in common. Both Mandriva and Slackware are in financial difficulty.
Sure.
You remember the comment about my involvement with the development of Slackware derivative? Forget it. We're already discussing about delaying the release and rebasing it off of something with more of a future. That's Kathleen Martin in a Distro Watch Weekly thread.
Huh.
Now, so that kind of made all the Slackware guys jump up and say, well, wait a minute. Slackware's not going anywhere.
What are you guys talking about?
We got multiple people working on it. The only thing that's going to make Slackware go away is if people leave the distribution.
Yeah.
So,
well, seriously, Slackware has never been the distro that needs the super pretty website. I mean, that's just not Slackware. Right. That's literally, that's like saying, oh my gosh, you guys, we can't Linux from scratch anywhere because the super awesome HTML5 website went down and has been replaced by just an FTP site. How will we ever do Linux from scratch again? That's stupid.
It got kind of out of control, and they're back up now. But Slackware. I think the reason why I wanted to talk about it at the top of the news segment is because I think it highlighted a funding problem that Slackware keeps running into. Everybody loves Slackware. Everybody has a soft spot for Slackware.
Yeah.
But it seems that the people buying from the Slackware store has dropped off. People
that's not good.
are not making donations. So I just wanted to put the word out there. If you are a Slackware user or a longtime Slackware user,
now's the time
maybe
to step
go grab
up.
some shirts. Maybe send them a buck or two.
Yeah.
Because they seem like they've been in a
And
tough
here's
spot.
the thing. If the naysayers are right and Slackware goes the way of the dodo in a couple of weeks, it would be really cool to have some Slackware shirts and sweaters and such. True. That would make you super cool in the nerdosphere.
That's a good point, Brian. All right,
it's an investment in your future.
Let's talk about Uncle Linus. Uncle Linus had a big week this week, Brian. Big week. He might win himself €1 million or potentially get a little payout from this. Check this out. Linus Torvalds is now a Millennium Technology Prize
laureate.
I was getting
That's
there.
awesome.
This
is way awesome.
Taking my time.
This is good news.
This is good time. So this is coming from the Technology Academy of Finland. Has declared 2 laureates.
Yeah, I want you to say the second laureate's name and what he does.
Where is it? Oh, Dr. Shinya?
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Shinya.
And his last name?
Yamanaka.
Very nice. Of Japan, was recognized for his work on what? Go ahead and say that word there, Chris.
Pluripotent? Pluripotent stem cells, Brian.
Very nice.
So that's Linus.
No chance I said it right.
Yeah, I know. It's a difficult
But seriously, this is way awesome. I think it's very well deserved.
This is kind of an interesting way this works. So he's joined by another candidate. And
now they fight to the death.
Right.
They go into a cage match. It's very, very Thunderdome-ish.
One of them will win.
There's a guy on a motorcycle that races around the outside of the Thunderdome. Tina Turner is on the outside just yelling at him. It's fantastic.
Would you care more about some crap with stem cells or Linux? Right? That's what you got to ask yourself. So check this out, though. The overall winner will also be awarded the majority of the prize pool worth more than €1 million, which will be then divided between the other laureates. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I got a little dyslexia going on. That's what
you can have as much dyslexia as you want.
So there's also some previous winners mentioned here. Tim Berners-Lee, of course, inventor of the World Wide Web. Sunju Nakaroma, the inventor of the blue LED and white LED light bulbs. Professor Robert Langer, or Lager, depending if you want to drop the N. His work for controlled drug release.
Yeah.
And some other people. with some cell stuff.
I just want to point out that he got to the end of the list. There's one other person, and he just said that there's some other people. That's kind of like Gilligan's Island, where the season 1, where there's only 2 more people, and they just say, and the rest.
And the rest.
Yeah. You kind of pulled one of those. But the other person is Mr. Michael, whatever his last name is, for his creation of dye-sensitive solar cells.
Yeah.
And, all these people are all super cool, but here's the thing. Most of them, I don't know what they do.
Right.
I know what Mr. Torvalds does, and I want to give him a high five for it. So
I'd say it's definitely a good thing. But either way, even
regardless if he wins or not, he gets to put that on his resume,
and he gets a little money. It sounds like there's a pool created.
That's awesome.
And I'm sure then he could turn around and buy himself a really nice MacBook Air.
Dude, he does like the MacBook Airs, but he's also big into like the sports cars.
Yeah,
he loves racing around Portland in sports cars.
How awesome would it be if Linus was like your uncle?
Uncle Linus in the sports cars,
just coming up for the holidays, bringing the sports car and the latest Linux kernel he's hacking on. I'd let him work at the Thanksgiving
Linux
table.
Kernel he's hacking on.
All right,
I'm sure that's what he wants to do.
Let's talk about this next story because this episode is going to be fairly Ubuntu heavy, being it's our 12.04 review. And this is a good story for all of you out there who are running Ubuntu on servers. HP ProLiant servers will now be certified for Ubuntu 12.04 long-term support when it ships. 4 days away. It's coming soon. And of course, the vendors are getting on here. Mark Shuttleworth announces at the OpenStack conference, and he said that they've received a ringing endorsement from HP in the form of certifications for Ubuntu 12.04 long-term support on ProLiant servers. Which ProLiant servers are very good servers. They're great servers, and they're very popular. Here's some other notes that I picked out of this story. When Ubuntu 12.04 is released, customers using the software on a ProLiant server will be able to receive hardware warranty support directly from HP. So you don't get Ubuntu support from HP, but you can... On these servers, if you actually load something that isn't technically supported, you can actually then get declined on warranty support, which is nuts because the operating system should be irrelevant for hardware malfunctions. But anyways, they're coming out here and saying but no plans to ship them with Ubuntu pre-configured. So just something to kind of keep in mind. It's a kind of interesting article. They talk about too about how Canonical feels like everything that they've been working on for the past couple of years is crystallizing all at once. Things are a bit wild right now, they say.
Dude, I believe it. They've got so many fires going.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that a little bit in our review, so save that for that. All right, B-Man. The next story on the news docket probably doesn't really upset all that many folks, but whenever you see a vendor like Google drop support for Linux, it's never a universally well-received thing.
Really drop support for Linux. So Google has stopped officially supporting the desktop Picasa application for Linux. Now, here's the thing. The desktop Picasa application for Linux is a poorly packaged Windows version of Picasa with some pre-bundled version of Wine to run, which it never ran as well as if you just installed what we like to call Wine and ran the Windows version of Picasa. It actually ran better. Yeah. So only one person ever installed and used this for more than 2 seconds. In fact, there's about 18,000 open source and proprietary applications for Linux that will sync up to the Picasa web album stuff that Google runs.
The thing is,
better than Google's Picasa.
This Picasa still has a couple of nice features that the desktop counterparts that are open source don't yet have. But, I agree with you. There's plenty of open source solutions. This was just a wine-wrapped version to begin with.
It doesn't really matter. It's kind of like remember EVE Online? EVE Online had official Linux support, quote unquote. Yeah. And all it was the exact same thing. It was just wine-wrapped the Windows version. Yeah. And they realized that, hey, using stock up-to-date Wine ran EVE better than what we were providing, and so they stopped support.
You can see it,
but it really didn't hurt anybody.
These apps never fit quite right with the Linux desktop. Nope. I mean, it looks like it
looks like a Windows 2000 app.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's what it looks like.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. It's sad to see. I would have preferred the story to have been Google finally releases a Linux native version.
Exactly.
Or fixes it, like puts some work into it, so now at least it looks right. Something, but it doesn't really matter.
The question is will we then see and say, there's 6 months, Google discontinues the Windows version of Wine or of Picasa
for the desktop?
They're just probably going to push the web version.
Yeah, the web version and push otother apps like Lightroom and FSpot and everyone else to support the.
It just don't work for me that much, B-Man. It just don't work for me personally. But it's all right.
It's all right. It's all right.
Okay. Let's talk about Gentoo Linux. We don't talk about them very much. And there was an April Fool's about Gentoo Linux having a live CD environment. Turns out it's real, only with a few modifications. I haven't tried it out. It wasn't a joke. Well, it was a joke at the time, but they're still working on it. This live Gentoo CD will have Linux kernel 3.3.0, Xorg, of course, KDE 4.8.1, GNOME 3.2.1, XFCE 4.8, latest Firefox, all that stuff. So you're going to get a good desktop environment.
You're going to get every desktop environment.
Here's what's interesting. Here's the advice they give you at the bottom of the page. Just set your date before you boot the live CD, and be sure to have a Linux-supported webcam plugged in.
What?
I don't know. I didn't get a chance to try it before the show, but I'm curious. I want to know what that means.
What?
So, of course, Gentoo, this is, in my estimation, as an old Gentoo user from like 3 or 4 years ago, Gentoo was, you got a very minimal environment
and then
set
you
up.
set it up from there.
And then you would create another environment by hand to root into that environment and then install the entire operating system inside that environment.
Yeah, it's Gentoo.
Live CD was very far removed from the entire picture.
That was not Gentoo. That's not the point of Gentoo.
Right.
So they're doing something funky with us.
Yeah.
They're messing with us is what they're doing.
They say you can't actually install Gentoo from the DVD, but I wouldn't believe that in the chat room. They're saying that, but I wouldn't think that's necessarily true because you could just do that same rooted environment approach. And
yeah, I'm sure you could somehow. Come on, it's Gentoo.
I like the idea.
Anything is possible.
The reason I like it is because if I could be on a Linux desktop, and even if I have to do all of the old Gentoo installer stuff from the Linux terminal, I could still then like browse the web and stuff while I'm installing my operating system.
Which is nice.
They also talk about something called the Gentoo install wizard, which I haven't
Honestly,
played with Gentoo in a while.
That would be nice just for going to a forum and copying and pasting lines to get stuff set up.
Oh, yeah. Totally. There's a ton of copy and pasting when you're doing the Gentoo setup because there's like
a ton of copy and pasting.
Huge wiki and all that stuff.
I still have one of my old text files that's just like my Gentoo pseudo script for getting a system going.
All right. Let's talk about some possibly good news, although the details are still a bit sketchy, but both Brian are really hopeful.
Super excited.
That Linux may be getting its hands on a really full-featured video editor very soon.
Really full-featured. Now, probably about a year and a half ago, we covered Lightworks was going to be open source. Now, Lightworks was a previously closed-source video editing suite, very professional quality, high-quality stuff, and brought to every platform, basically Windows, Mac, and Linux. Now, flash forward about a year from that point, and they release a Windows version. No Mac or Linux version, and it was pretty doggone quiet. We couldn't really seem to get an official stance on what was happening.
Yeah.
Other than it seemed like it might come kind of soon, we hoped. Well, we've got an official date. What is the official date there, Chris?
They say, this is according to them at NAB, that we should see it on the 28th of May.
So, little over a month from now, we should be seeing it, is what it looks like.
Includes a host of new features, including some multi-platform deployments.
So here's the thing. They do not specifically in their press release say Linux version coming this day. They also don't say Mac version coming this day. But they say enhanced
for multi-platform deployments.
Right. So now it could very well just be a new Windows version that will maybe has some of the work done to make it easier for them to port. We don't know.
Well, they actually, down here too, the other thing that kind of makes me think is we didn't quite know what to expect when we first released the beta version of Lightworks, which would have been Windows only. But 16 months on, we have over 250,000 registered users and 30,000 new downloads every month, and that's before we release the Linux and OS X versions.
Which means it's coming.
Yeah.
So it is coming, and
this thing's going to have 4K support, which awesome. Like Final Cut is just now introducing.
Yep.
Native H.264 support, AVC HD for those of you with a camcorder, ProRes, which I got to figure probably won't work on Linux, but if it does, that'd be really big.
That would be killer.
Because like all of the cameras announced at NAB record in ProRes. Improved interoperability with AAF files and Avid edit sharing flows. So if you come from Avid, all kinds of great stuff.
Super cool.
They also talk about a sort of collaborative editing back-end technology that I think they're going to sell as like a commercial product where there's a part that plugs into Lightworks that sort of works with this database back-end of assets and clips and things like that, and you can check things out. And I mean, that sounds like it's going to be really hot.
Way nice. So it looks very, very cool. I have very, very high hopes. I really hope this isn't just another we wait a month and we get another Windows version, but it looks like the Linux version's coming, so good news.
Absolutely. All right, B-Man. Well, that's all the news for this week.
Hey, Chris, let me ask you a question.
All right, B-Man, go.
Do you remember about 6 months ago, we were hanging out?
Nope.
And we're like, hey, Ubuntu's out.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that, but that was 6 months ago.
That was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So you know what time it is?
Ubuntu time.
Ubuntu time.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
We're 4 days early, technically.
We are 4 days early.
But next weekend's Linux Fest Northwest, we won't be in town, so
And there's another thing, really.
Oh.
It's really done.
Yeah, it
At
is.
this point,
I know.
Ubuntu 12.04 is done. It's 4 days from release. They're just final packaging.
Yeah.
They're going to fix any major
Right.
showstopper. Otherwise, it's done.
Yeah.
So we're really at the final. We've really been at the final for a couple of
Yeah.
days now. And
Yeah.
if we do the review now, we beat everybody to doing the review.
That's true.
Which really is just jumping.
Feels good.
Jumping the gun.
We're the Sunday show. We should get that.
We're the Sunday show. That's
Yeah.
what we get for coming in on Sunday
Right.
in the morning
Right.
to do our show instead
the
of
morning.
being all lazy and waiting till Monday morning like
right.
those other jerk-offs
Right?
doing their shows
hate
on
those
Mondays.
guys!
Right? I'm gonna make a prediction.
Okay.
I bet you anything, because this always happens.
Yeah.
This week,
Yeah.
Lifehacker will talk about Ubuntu 12.04
No.
being out.
Everybody's going to talk about it, but nobody's going to have the action review like we will be, man.
That's right.
I got to tell you, folks, right now, I'm on the precipice. I am on a precipice, and I want you to give me some space. I don't want you to get all on my case, but let me tell you about this.
Ready.
Everyone. Okay, here's the thing. I've been excited about 12.04 for a while. I can't help it. The long-term support thing, it gets me.
It's the big one. This is the big one.
I get excited about it because I'm like, if this is great and I jump on this, I could run this for years and be happy.
You won't, though.
Well, I know. But
You'll
that's,
upgrade 6 months from now.
that's what I tell myself.
But here is the thing, though. This is the one that the big organizations, the
Yes.
businesses, the
Right.
governments,
Right.
the Aunt Edna's, everyone else, this is the one that they're going to run for a long time.
Yeah.
And so if this one sucks,
Right.
it's game over for Ubuntu.
it's bad.
Literally, at this one sucks, Ubuntu's going
Right.
to drop down to number
Right.
10 on distrowatch.info's list.
You could always
It's
pull.
done.
You could always pull a Red Hat and have like all server presence and no desktop presence. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but that never works. You never make any money like that. So
right.
so here's the thing. So we've had over a year now of Unity. We've had with their whole new UI.
Mhm.
Everyone's been making fun of it nonstop.
Mhm.
And
And
this is its time where it has to be polished and ready and rock solid
I'd
right
say
now.
so. I don't know. You know, I've been thinking about that quite a bit. And in this release of Ubuntu, there's quite a bit of options out there if you don't want to use Unity. There, you can actually go with the GNOME Classic desktop if you want to.
Yeah.
You can go with Unity 2D, which I don't know why you would do that.
It's the same thing except 2D.
But you could also go with the regular old GNOME 3 desktop. I mean,
That's ridiculous.
Or you can go with KDE 4a. So
you don't want to do that.
I don't think it quite makes it and breaks it for Ubuntu, but I think it makes it and breaks it for Unity. And you know, Unity has been so hard. Unity has had such a hard life, I think, honestly, because it started as the netbook UI.
Yeah.
And so people looked at that as that's the small thing. That's something designed for a small, tiny form factor. I don't want that on my big, powerful laptop and desktop.
And let's be honest, when Unity launched for the netbooks, the existing stock Ubuntu had a smaller UI footprint than Unity did.
Yeah.
So it actually worked better for the netbooks at the time than Unity did.
Yeah, yeah. So now what we've seen now is them trying to move it forward into a full-fledged desktop solution, and then I think we've seen a lot of users resist it. I knew that was going to be a problem for me personally, so I've actually been running it for I don't know. I mean, since
Quite a bit.
before Beta 1.
You've been hopping back and forth between
Yeah.
this and KDE for a while now.
I have, and then in the last month, I've tried to stick in Unity, and in the last couple of weeks, I've done everything in Unity. I even some of the jobs that I had to reset stuff up to make it work in Unity, I've done. And I got to say, coming away from it, I don't know if I should just say this up front, but Unity has become my favorite desktop environment.
It's pretty good.
It is. And I know all of you out there aren't going to like that, and I know you're going to give me a hard time. And here's the thing: is different desktop environments are just for different people. And there's just awesome window manager. It works for some of you out there. XFCE works for a lot of you out there. Unity is really working for me. I've got it set up here, and here's what I really like: is first of all, I dig HUD. And you remember we kind of gave HUD a hard time. HUD is that system that's supposed to replace menus, but if you're a keyboard guy like I am, I can hit one button here and I can type in print, and now I have file print right there without ever having to touch my mouse.
Yep.
I really like that. And Unity, HUD is just pulled up with the Alt button, and then you have your regular Unity launcher with your super key. So you've got two different buttons that go right there that are sort of intuitive, and they're both very fast. See, what I figured was going to kill them is if
it
they
took a
weren't
while.
fast.
But no, they're mega peppy, and it really is.
Of course, you can't.
When they launched the HUD, they really touted it as basically the menu bar replacement. I mean,
Right.
that was what was being talked about. And honestly, as a menu bar replacement, I think it blows chunks. I think it sucks just gigantic rocks. But as a launcher, it's actually quite cool. It's a lot like GNOME do in that way, or a lot of those other applications that I love. Like
exactly.
That.
I don't
you
even
hit
load
a quick
GNOME
hotkey. You start typing.
Yep.
You hit go.
And also do something. Type it in there. Type it in there. Look at the resolution of the text in your. Just type anything. Look how beautiful that text looks. It looks so high, so polished, and you see the border around the Unity window there.
It's clean.
And then you see how it merges up into the title bar where the clock is and everything. It's all one piece.
It's smooth. It's clean. It's well done. It looks nice, and it's very fast. So
but that's the key piece. The speed. Until 1204, Unity did not have the performance. I would sit here and I would find myself waiting on Unity.
Yes.
And that part has been solved now.
That was actually, and that's one of the things where I just could never even really give Unity a chance before.
Yeah.
I tried and I tried and I tried. And yes, before now, Unity was buggy. I mean, especially when it first came out. Man, that sucker crashed and crashed. I mean, I assumed that's what Unity was supposed to do. I assumed it was supposed to crash all the time.
Well, it did seem
just
like
to
it.
Punish you.
Kind of.
Because you were born with the original sin or something.
Well,
Who knew?
I thought maybe they got like coins every time it crashed.
They get one part of a Bitcoin every time Unity crashes. But now it doesn't crash and it goes fast. So I'm looking at it now and I'm like, well, this is actually pretty fantastic. We're in this really interesting spot right now, and I don't want to get too off track here, but you flash back a year, 2 years. KDE was really slow. The new KDE 4 was just dog slow. GNOME Shell was coming through, but it was kind of pokey and whatnot. Unity was barely functional. It was so slow. So we had all these desktop environments that made you just assume that the future of desktop Linux was just horrible because everything was slow and crashing. I mean, it kind of made you pessimistic a little bit.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, not only is KDE and GNOME Shell rocking, but now Unity, it looks smooth, it runs fast, and it never has crashed for me. Not one time for me.
If you look at the changelog for Unity in this 1204 development cycle, there has been a watershed. I mean, just a massive amount of bug fixes that have gone into it.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing that I think is really important is they've addressed, in some ways, customizability in Unity, because Unity was pretty rigid. And now
still is pretty rigid.
It is. In the Ubuntu app repo, though, in the App Store now, you can get this My Unity plugin, and this My Unity plugin will let you adjust a lot of the Unity settings you don't like. Everything from the launcher size to its transparency. A lot of the little behaviors that you may or may not like, like turning on icons. Like I can turn on my home desktop icon if I want, things like that.
And honestly, I highly, highly recommend grabbing My Unity as soon as you install Ubuntu 12.04 because it allows you to do the things that you need to do to make Ubuntu 12.04 your home.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it feels too rigid.
There are a few other tools out there that work too, but you have to kind of be careful because not all of them are fully updated for 12.04 yet. There's the tweaking tools that are out there, but My Unity is the one I recommend. They've built some interesting other things on top of it too. Now we have in the system preferences area or system settings area there is a backup software now, and this backup thing is really great. It backs up to Ubuntu 1, which you get you get a file like 5 gigs for free on Ubuntu 1, and it just runs in the background.
It also backs up. Go back to that storage there and drop that drop down box, the storage tab. And then drop down the backup location.
Oh yeah,
it will back up to your over SSH, WebDAV servers, custom locations, shares, local folders, FTP, anything you can possibly think of for how you put a file somewhere. It will back up for you.
Yeah,
it does such a nice job of it,
and you can set it to do it. You get it
however often,
different intervals and things like that. That's really nice
and go to the folders.
It gets your config files too. Which is
I
nice.
really dug this because so you can say which folders you want to back up, and also which folders within those folders you want to ignore.
Right.
So don't ever back up my download folder because why do I need that? Just back up everything else in home and back it up up to my FTP server as well as to my local storage drive.
Yeah.
So and you can stick it. It's just
maybe
they
I'll
did
tell
such a nice job.
Don't ever back up my desktop too. I don't need my desktop backed up.
Yeah.
So then it just runs in the background. I said to go to Ubuntu 1 because none of that stuff that I have in there adds up to more than 5 gigs. Because I exclude my Dropbox and stuff like that because that's already on Dropbox.
So why not?
That was something nice they built in. Something else they built in, which I didn't know how well it would actually work, but they have this new privacy control setting, which I'd like to see the other distros do this too.
That's great.
You can go in here and you can delete your different activities, or you can delete files associated with your instant messaging program, websites you visit, your email cache, things like that. You can go through and clear those out. You can get
You can
a
choose
little handle on that
not
kind of
to
stuff.
log. Basically, it's your GTK, it's your GNOME activity. So when you launch files, when you
has to be
open
stuff it
files,
supports.
you things like that. You can say, you know what, ignore all of that. And I believe like empathy is supported and a few other things. You can just say, hey, or don't think about web attachments, things like that. Just ignore anything I do with video files. Wink, wink. And you can just say, just ignore these and don't ever record the information about this. It's really nice. And honestly, this is great for companies that really want to lock down their workstations, government institutions, and the like who need this sort of privacy settings. Very nice.
Couple other things they've done to make things a little nicer is the Software Center is better integrated now. When you install software, there's this neat little install. It's a little clunky. It just did it right there. It was almost too fast, really. But it sends the icon over to the Unity launcher now, and then
it gives you a progress bar.
Gives you a little progress bar.
Yeah.
I like the whole, here's the icon. It's over here now that you've installed this, because one of the issues I still have with Unity is general application explorability still is kind of weak.
Super weak.
Like if I just want to look at all of the apps on my computer, I just have to look at this long arse alphabetical list.
Unless you filter.
Yeah, you could filter, but if I don't know exactly what I'm looking for, like sometimes like I know I installed something a long time ago, but I don't quite remember the name, and I kind of need to see the icon to see it again, you know, to remember it. It
is
works.
A pain. Finding the applications that are already installed in your system is a royal pain in Ubuntu 12.04. It really is. Click on the filter search results there. Because I like the UI for this, in that it's nice and easy to choose your categories for what you're searching for.
And you can even do ratings, which is kind of interesting too.
Right there within it. Yeah. It's super handy and it's nice. The problem is that's not exactly very discoverable. So if you're new to Ubuntu 12.04, I mean, you may even be a Linux diehard, but you're new to this, finding that ability is going to be hard. The flip side of that is really, how often do you do that? I mean, normally you know what applications you have and are going to be using. So you're either going to put them over there in the Unity launcher.
If this is truly targeted at that mythical new Linux user who's never used Linux, they probably won't go beyond what's on their launcher.
No.
So right there on the sidebar.
Right.
Okay. So here, while we're talking about discoverability issues, though, I think they still have a pretty big issue with hidden menus. So, for example, I'm in the Software Center, and if I didn't know how this all works, I wouldn't know that there's a file, edit, and view and help menu up here, because they're just simply invisible until I hover over there.
Yeah.
And I'm not... See, it's almost like they expect users to go around with a mouse and like hover over every area
until
of the
they
UI.
find what's available. Yeah.
What kind of logic is that?
I generally agree with you on that. I like having the menus up there.
It's cleaner, but
I don't like having them disappear. I like to see the menus.
Right.
I can bring up the screenshot here. What I started noticing using Unity in 12.04 is that this actually looks an awful lot like Memo. The old school Memo back from 2008.
I can see it. I guess, you know what? Widgets would almost be the next evolution.
It's the next logical evolution. I mean, if you look at this right here, the launcher is on the left-hand side and is vertical. The menus are on the top, left justified. All your indicator applets are on the top right justified. All your applications can run full screen in the open area, and the bottom and right-hand side have nothing else on there, just open-ended. Really, it's the same basic UI paradigm there. And what's nice about that is it lends itself really well to portable devices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we've already seen, I mean, they're coming with, Ubuntu TV, which is using the Unity UI, kind of a customized version with special lenses to look good on TVs.
Right.
And we know that they're going to be bringing along a special version that is also kind of tweaked a bit for tablets. And honestly, I don't think they need to tweak it all that much. They need to do a few things to make things a little more clickable. But that Memo UI back from 2008, is great for portable devices. Yeah. It's stellar. It gives you all the information you need. It's fast. It's tried and true. Yep. This has been market tested for years. Yeah. So I didn't really it didn't click with me before that that's really what they were going for. But they really have chosen a UI paradigm that works for that special area between mobile devices and desktops.
I think a lot of people think it doesn't work on the desktop, and I'm here to say I think it does work. I guess what my big discovery is with 12.04 is this paradigm does work. And what I found interesting is you're showing a Memo device there. I tried it on a netbook. You tried it on a netbook. It scales wonderfully. The Unity UI, which actually what doesn't work so great are some of the old GTK apps that have been around years before and years after netbooks. They still don't fit quite right on the screen.
Yeah.
Unity itself, however, fits fantastically on this little screen.
It does, doesn't it?
And the way they fold the launcher on the sidebar, I don't know. Overall,
it works.
I think it is. I think it really is probably in terms of like a desktop here. You can see on the side of my screen a desktop where they stack it like this. I can't think of another desktop that has sort of pulled this off so well that goes across so many different resolutions.
It does. It works astoundingly well. And I think what a lot of it comes down to is they're using a general UI concept that worked really well on this little itty bitty Nokia internet tablet 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And as you scale that up, and as long as it still looks good and stretches and scales well, it scales just fine to bigger devices with higher resolution.
What I find striking is the Unity launcher, while it takes up more space on the netbook,
it's the same.
It's functional on both of them, but on the desktop it's just more. On the bigger screen, it just gives me more.
Yeah.
It is very well done. There's a very smooth transition there. And if that, I could see this very easily being touchable.
So that's what I want to talk about next. So I spent most of the week with this on my Lenovo tablet, running this as a tablet. I've tried very hard to, as often as possible, never use my keyboard. So the Lenovo S10 3T is basically just a netbook like the MSI Win there.
The screen
only
flips around.
It flips around and is touchscreen. It's a nice little multi-touch capacitive screen. And here's what I found. With a few minor exceptions, like a few menu items that were hard to click with my finger because I have big man hands, and a couple of UI items here and there, like an applet that I found I had a hard time clicking on.
Yeah.
It was completely usable. In fact, if you go over to lunduke.com right now, you'll see a big blog post, kind of my official review. I wrote the review using the touchscreen keyboard.
Oh, really?
The whole damn thing. And if you look at it, it's long. It's lengthy. There's a lot of words there. Would it have been faster to do with a hardware keyboard? Yeah, without a doubt. But honestly, I found the on-screen keyboard to be stellar. Now, the on-screen keyboard I've made fun of in the past. It's called Onboard. And in the past, it just didn't work quite as well for me.
It looks really slick.
The default look for it I never liked. I never realized the sheer flexibility of it. Now, here's the thing. When you start Ubuntu 12.04 and you bring up the onboard on-screen keyboard, which you can do once you log in or even from the login screen itself if you don't have a keyboard, it's tiny and it's orange and garish.
Oh, really?
And it's almost impossible to use on a touchscreen unless you have, I'm assuming, like an 800-foot wide touchscreen.
Right.
Because the keys are so small.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can resize it whatever you want because Onboard is actually pulling all of its graphics from an SVG file. So it's all scalable vector graphics.
That makes sense.
And you can create your own. In fact, you can create your own keyboard layout. If you want a Dvorak keyboard layout using a Star Trek Elskar design, you can do it, plop that in there, tweak the configuration, and you can have your own completely scalable, resizable keyboard, which goes even further to include macros.
I like that.
So you can set, every time I hit this random button with a picture of Jean-Luc Picard on it, it just automatically types out the word engage. Or something random like that. You can do
really
whatever
nice.
you want.
Like auto response buttons and stuff.
Exactly. And you can set transparency, the resizing, the layout options, when to show and hide it. So you can say, have it be gone, except for when I click in a edit field and then appear.
Right.
When you do appear, have certain levels of transparency, but not just transparency.
And can you move it where it is on the screen?
Yeah, you can move it wherever you
want.
want.
So it's not just
if
stuck
you
at
look
the
at
bottom.
it here, if you look at the screenshot, there's this little button off to the side here that looks like a moving tile.
Yeah.
There's also mouse emulation.
Oh.
So if you want to emulate a mouse using
could
the
be
keyboard,
handy.
it works very, very well. It just works so very nicely. You can even set the transparency of the background versus the transparency of the keys. You can do all sorts of stuff. And you need to, because if you don't set the preferences on this, it sucks so bad. And you'll end up with the impression like I had when I first started using it, basically last year, where it's just like, well, I'm not going to use this. This is terrible. But honestly, it is stellar. And it is so good. I'm going to go so far as to say that this is, without a doubt, with no competition, the best on-screen text entry interface I have ever seen in my life.
Seriously.
That beats the, every little PDA, every Palm Pilot, what the iOS devices had, what Android had, the swipe keyboards, everything. It is glorious,
That
but
good,
you
huh?
need to spend time tweaking it. The screenshot I've got up there is one of the default themes that it comes with. It comes like 10 themes that you can choose from.
So you don't have to use the weird orange theme it came with? Is that what it came
Dear
with
God, the weird orange theme is so bad.
What's it like configuring it? What kind of interface do you have? To
It is.
setting up
It is literally just a standard little thing. Here, I'll bring up onboard here.
onboard. Oh yeah, I've seen
Onboard settings.
Okay, yeah.
So I can bring up
that's what that is.
onboard preferences right here. You've got auto show things, windows.
So it's got
You
a
can
nice little
set
GUI.
The transparencies of the background. Don't show the background. Set it to transparent after you've been inactive for so many seconds. Here's the different layouts you can do. You can do literally anything. It's just so great. Let me bring up onboard here so you can see it running. So here you can see it running with in its current size.
Yeah,
This is its default size.
Okay.
As you can see, there's no way in Hades that you can use that.
Right.
But now you can type it just
So
fine.
for those of you listening, Brian just like quadrupled the size of the keyboard just by dragging. It just scales beautifully.
Super easy. It's just phenomenal. And then you can go over and click on this.
Oh, sweet. So then
Bring
you
up
get the
basically
extended
a
10
full
key.
10 key, and over here you can bring up, see these little things over here, these
that
keys
could be
over
really
here
nice.
are all configurable that you can say, here's snippets. So I want to generate
that's
my own
great.
snippet, and here's what it texts. Here's a website. Here's my email signatures. Here's click. Boom.
Yeah. Anything you have to type repeatedly, you could just put in there to have it auto fill it up.
Phenomenal. Just
That is-
phenomenal.
that is a
now,
really
it
great
may
keyboard.
seem like a little thing. And yes, you can use onboard elsewhere too. You don't have to be in Ubuntu to use it, but they did a really nice job integrating it. It works incredibly well. It's insanely configurable. I mean,
It's got a little Ubuntu button on
it
it.
causes you to pause and think for a minute. 'Cause I've got that little HTC Flyer Android tablet, and I love it.
Mhm.
But no matter what on-screen keyboard I use,
yeah.
I'm really kind of limited in how it's displayed, in where it goes on the screen. I click on a text entry field, and
it
everything
kinda
goes
comes up,
swooshes
yeah.
up and squishes everything. Well, I didn't want that. In my tablet, I want to set where my keyboard is
Right.
and have it always be there when
What
I
a
want it.
concept.
And make it customizable.
Yeah.
And this is quite literally, because of this, combined with the launch bar on the left, this makes this the nicest experience I've ever had on a tablet.
I agree.
I would kill for this on a tablet right now, which makes me think, I'm like, hey, the guys doing the Vivaldi tablet's going to have a run for their money.
I know.
Which thrills me, because what I've seen coming out of the KDE with the guys with the KDE Plasma Active UI is stellar.
We got two really good things coming up.
Really good.
I know.
That just blow iOS, Android, and Windows 8 out of the water in terms of usability on a tablet, because I like a customizable interface, and this is awesome. So
And
this is one of the biggest
You'll
things for
eventually
me.
be able to install Ubuntu on the Vivaldi if you want to. I want to give a quick shout out to what I feel like has been a much improved development process of 1204. I have no inside knowledge. I have no idea other than what I'm able to observe. But I've watched, for the show, I've watched just about every major Linux distro from the backside, watching it kind of percolate up as they work on it. And also, I've been specifically following 1204 since I've been running it for so long. I really feel like, although Canonical has been doing a lot of things, I have criticized them in the past for not being focused enough on Ubuntu. And I feel like with 1204, they really buckled down and they really got to work on it. And they also really increased the lines of communication. Throughout the entire development process, they were releasing these Ubuntu developer advisory updates where they would talk about what's going on with the distro, what new members they have, what's fixed, what still needs to be done. Really keeping people informed of what's going on and the whole community on what's going on. And there's one thing to say, well, we're open source, so we're transparent by default. But then there's a whole other thing to come through and actually practice transparency.
And have communication that means something. Because, I mean, honestly, to be open and transparent and willing to answer questions is great. But when you've got this big organization, this huge project, you need someone who can communicate effectively in a concise way that gets the information out there. And Canonical's really stepped up and done that.
Right.
I'm impressed.
So they also they mentioned that they also have a new QA farm team in-house too that's been working on this. They've been doing a lot of usability testing. I think
it shows.
All in all, this is maybe the most polished release of Ubuntu I've seen.
By far, dude.
Especially when you consider where it was a year ago. And I don't know, I think at this point, people are too far down the Unity hate train to jump off. But if you're up for it, I would challenge you.
Jump off, dude.
Try it for a week.
Yeah.
And don't jump out. You got to stick with it. That's the rough spot. Try Unity for a week and see if it sits with you. It worked for me.
It worked for you, and you were kind of going the KDE route.
Yeah.
I've spent most of my time in Xmonad and Awesome Window Manager. I've been going the exact opposite route. I've been going hardcore minimalist.
Actually,
and even I'm looking at Unity, and I'm saying, you know what? This makes sense.
And
it's nice.
Awesome, is a tiled window manager that's full screen, and there is some similarities in Unity the way it works when you full screen applications.
Some, it's some similarities.
There in a bit. It's there in a sense. Like so, here let's go with something I would do in Awesome is I would take a terminal and I would full screen it. In a lot of ways, that is a lot of what.
But in Awesome or Xmonad, you're going more for tiles.
I know.
And configurable tiles.
Check this out.
There is some distinct differences.
This is a great little app that I've been using with Unity because you can.
Oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah, and so you can do this kind of thing where you still get the tiled effect. This is called what is the name of this? Terminator.
Yeah,
Terminator,
it's a nice
where you can have multiple different terminals in there, and then combined with the full screen aspect. That in a way reminds me a lot of
work. Yeah,
it reminds me of Awesome or Xnomad in a lot of ways. I'm not saying it's going to be working for everybody, but I think I tried it. I was pretty happy. Any other final wrap-up thoughts? Like anything with the store or anything like that?
A couple of thoughts. One on the store. So the Ubuntu Software Center, it is looking really phenomenal. There are a couple of problems with it still. It still isn't mega fast. It's a lot faster than the last 2 releases of the Software Center. You'll notice that things get bogged down a whole heck of a lot less, but it is not as fast as Synaptic used to be, which, is kind of a bummer in a way, but it's fast enough now that you really don't care all that much. Like, it's not slowing you down to the point where you're starting to rip your hair out and going, damn it, Ubuntu, get going, which it made me do a year ago this time.
They've turned on recommendations, too. You can go down to the bottom of the software store and say, yeah, go ahead, turn on recommendations, and then as you buy stuff.
They work kind of good. They'll get better and better as it go, but they kind of do work good. The other thing I want to point out is it's organized really nicely, the Software Center, except for when you want to pay for paid software. If you go right now, Chris, into the paid software section, for purchase. This is what you get. You get a gigantic list of things you can buy, and you can sort it by multiple ways, but what the heck are you looking for? You don't really know. There's not a good way to discover commercially supported applications. Right, it kind of seems like it should be mixed in
with the other categories. It's just some things are free and some things are paid.
That's how I feel too, as a guy
What do you
who
think
has
about them selling magazines in here?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think
I do too.
It's fantastic to have stuff available there where we can support Linux magazines and everything else. I think
especially
this is
if you just want to buy,
way.
And it's a great way if you want to just buy one edition of the magazine.
Yeah, and it's not like you're getting these wrapped in crazy DRM and whatnot. You're getting like nice little simple PDF files. It's really, really nice, but finding things is impossible. It's just, well, not impossible. It's hard to discover things unless you know what you want. It's a flip side.
Like, because I find that software discovery in one sense is better under the Software Center than any distro I've ever used.
Yeah.
But it falls down, like you fall off a cliff way too soon. Yeah. Like if you just want to browse, like if I just want to go to the games section here and I just want to browse and find World of Goo, that's pretty easy to find. And that's a commercial app. They make that one easy. But like on some of the other stuff, if it's not in this like
it's not in the top rated games, the top 10 or whatever,
then you just immediately you fall off a cliff and you just go into this long arse list of hit and miss stuff.
So now here's the thing. Now if you look through there, you can get paid applications in the rest of them.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's kind of like when you see a new Humble Indie bundle come out. You want to go check it out because you want to support those independent developers. You want to support more people bringing games to Linux. So when you're in that mood and you want to just do that, and you go into the for paid section of the Ubuntu Software Center, there's not really a great way to search around. But that's a really minor nitpick because it still does a great job in all other ways, and it is looking better and better all the time, and I'm sure they will keep getting better.
I want to talk about lenses just real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got to. I don't know if you got to play with them much, but lenses are interesting. Right now, by default, it comes with the video lenses, and lenses are built into the Unity menu launcher here.
Yeah.
When you bring them up, you can look at all kinds of different. So theoretically, once more and more of them get out there, all kinds of different lenses. I'll give you an example. Pretend like I had this lens installed. It's not working yet for 1204. But I could have a lens on here where I wanted to. Here's a great one actually. Crap. Let's just go with this. Here's Gwibber. Right? So Gwibber has my Twitter feed right now built into the Unity stream, and I could probably search my Twitter feed for, of course, if I knew how to spell your name, I could probably search, there you go. So there's Brian Lunduke right there announcing that the Linux Action Show is going live, built into Unity. All I have to do is have Gwibber set up, and then which I would use anyways, and then just get this lens.
Yeah.
There's also Google Docs lenses, so if you're a big Google Docs user, you could search your Google Docs thing and then open up the that file from here. They have contacts, videos, music links, Spotify, which is kind of interesting. If you're a Spotify user,
It's kind of interesting.
you can select your music from within the Unity launcher. And what's nice is all of these things they're just the super key away. You start typing and it's there, and then it launches the appropriate app. I like the idea of lenses. I kind of scoffed at them at first,
Me too.
and I haven't seen a lot of really, really great working ones yet.
I feel like it has the potential
Yeah.
for being awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The only one I've really got working is the Gwibber.
Yeah.
And
But that one just works.
there's also one where you can search YouTube. I haven't bothered with that one, but YouTube and I don't know.
See, the only one that I tried to use was the Gwibber one, but I always have Gwibber running anyway, so it didn't really matter. Which kind of brings me to my last thing is my final thoughts on this is, who would I recommend this to? Like, if someone's running Windows right now, I would unequivocally recommend 1204 to them, because you run all your Windows apps in Wine. I feel like the UI is fantastic, and the way Windows is going with Windows 8 is such an entirely different direction that I feel like, honestly, Ubuntu 1204 is a really good upgrade path from Windows 7 if you don't want to go the Windows 8 route. But when I really started thinking about it, is if you're already a Linux user and you're running, Fedora or OpenSUSE or an old version of Ubuntu, who do I really even recommend this to? And I'm thinking, if you're running an old version of Ubuntu and you just have been stodgy about it, and you're like, I'm not upgrading to the Unity stuff,
I guess
you've got to upgrade.
I'll tell you this.
The other thing is, I like OpenSUSE, Arch, and Ubuntu. Those tend to be my three distros that are go-to. I am not going to get rid of my OpenSUSE box. I'm not going to get rid of my Arch box.
No.
But with this release of Ubuntu, if I didn't have Ubuntu 1204 installed on a machine, it would make me cry. Like, it would make me sad that I didn't have it available.
I've already got it. I've got it installed on 4 computers in my house right now. I really like 1204.
It's really great. It's hard for me to imagine not having it. So this becomes a must-have installation on something. I just simply have to have it available.
I think for anybody who runs one distro and you want a distro that is going to be updated for a while, and here's the inescapable truth about Ubuntu is, and this will be the same for 1204 within a matter of weeks, is there is just always a package. There's always a PPA or always a package,
of something.
And you can always get things working. And sometimes under Linux, that can be very frustrating when they don't support your distribution properly. And so it's very nice to live in the Ubuntu world because it's not really a problem. And it's kind of ridiculous how much is not a problem. And how many sites are out there just writing about Ubuntu, and then when they talk about a piece of software, they put a one-click installer in the web page.
Isn't that great?
It's really nice. So if you want to live in the most supported Linux out there, and
this is where you go.
You're okay with Unity. This is where you go. And I would say give Unity a week. If you don't like it,
use a different window manager.
Install a different window manager, and you're done.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, while I'm loving Unity right now, I do have Xmonad and Awesome installed, and I toggle back to them from time to time, and I think, I do love this.
Right. Well, if you reboot this machine, it will come up as a Ubuntu splash screen and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's still there. But if I try to clean if I clean the slate, Brian, if I clean the slate and I look at it as a new desktop, I like it quite a bit. And,
I like it a lot.
I think they've got themselves a potentially really great release here.
I think it's stellar. I think it's absolutely stellar. I definitely would say this is the best release they've ever done.
There you go.
I mean, it literally, if you were shown an old version like Hoary Hedgehog or any of those old Ubuntu releases, or Warty, wouldn't you use this over those older ones?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even the old GNOME 2 ones that we know and love before they gave up Unity. I would still choose this one.
Yeah.
This is great. It's fast. It works great. It looks good. I couldn't think of a reason not to use it.
Even if you, for some reason, have a system that can't get Compiz working, they've done a ton of great work with Unity 2D, and they also have the GNOME Classic desktop. So, I mean, it's just a win-win.
Yeah, and I found that if you want to try this out in VMs, this runs like a dream under VirtualBox. So just throw it up in a VirtualBox. It runs fantastically well. So no issues.
There you go. All right, B-Man, that's the Linux Action Show's look at Ubuntu 1204.
I'm back. Today we're going to be talking about remote desktop, Chrome, and what you can do about it. And you can too, or something really clever like that. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about your grandma's calling or your mom's calling. You're just like, my computer's not doing this one thing and so on and so forth. And I can get to the internet, but there's all these pop-ups and all this sort of stuff. And you're thinking, look, I really don't necessarily want to drive down there to deal with this. But at the same time, I'm not using Windows. So remote access, ease of use, different operating systems, Linux, Windows, it can get a little sticky. But there is, in fact, an application, or rather an app, built in for Chrome that you can install right now and have your significant other, parent, whoever it may be, installs well, that's going to allow you to have probably the most seamless remote experience I've ever had cross-platform. It's just unbelievable. In my particular case, and I tested it both ways, but I used it from Windows to Linux. And it also works Linux to Windows. It works really well. So we're going to go ahead and open up Chrome. And we're going to go to the Chrome store. I'm going to search for the word remote. And I'm going to hit enter. And it is going to present me with a whole bunch of good stuff here. I'm looking for Chrome Remote Desktop Beta. Don't let the beta scare you. It works really well. I was very happy with it. I already had it installed. So for me, all I had to do is come back to my new tab, go to Apps, and select Chrome Remote Desktop. Now, when you're presented with this screen, two things I love about this. One, there's no writing down IP addresses. There's no, desktop names. There's nothing real hardcore, scary here. You just simply have to choose, am I the one offering help or am I the one getting help? In my particular case, I'm the one giving help. I would then hit access now. After I've done that, or even before, it doesn't matter, the person on the other end that you're getting ready to help will also hit share now. So they would share, you would access, and everybody's good. Once they've offered a share, they're going to be presented with a series of numbers. They're going to, over the phone, read you off a series of numbers, and it's really not a big deal. It's very anonymous. They're dynamically generated, and they don't offer the security risk in that they only work one time. So I really, really like that. It's very secure. In addition to, obviously running over a secure interface. So let's take a look at what that actually looks like when this is running. Now, this particular video was done in such a way that I blurred out the access code just for the sake of security, but it shows you what it looks like when someone connects. I've entered the access code when I'm accessing. I click it, I wait for it to connect. Once I do, I'm able to access my Linux Mint desktop from Windows XP is what I was doing in this particular instance. And as you can see here, it shows me connected at the top. I'm dragging my little alert that I'm connected to the remote desktop. I'm opening menus. I'm moving stuff around. It really was this responsive. I couldn't be happier with how responsive it was. The video quality is actually better than what you're seeing on the screen. It was flawless, absolutely perfect. I was blown away by it. And everything worked really well. Even the 3D effects weren't lagging at all. It was just absolutely fantastic. And how simple it was. Now, here's what's really cool about this whole thing is that if you're dealing with someone that's not computer literate, this is very duplicatable. It only requires that they have Chrome installed on their desktop, and you've obviously taken the liberty of installing this app ahead of time. It's easy to get to. It's not resource intensive, and it works. And they're not having to run something real complicated that tends to confuse folks. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't other options out there, because there are. There are a number of great remote desktop options out there, such as, well, there's one running Wine. I think it's, what'd you say the name of that was? Teamviewer. Yeah, I seem to remember that. Teamviewer runs in Wine. That's a good app, and it's all self-contained, which is really cool. And then there's also the fact you can run, SSH. You can actually do that with VNC. Yeah, and you can run, VNC with SSH. And you can also do X forwarding as well. I've had the best luck with X forwarding, but again, that's really not always the most practical solution for all instances. It can be very, Well, and this is cross-platform as well. And while you can do these other things cross-platform too, this tends to be a little more streamlined, and it's simple. Chrome, app, access, share, vice versa. Simple. Enter a number, connect, you're good to go. Everybody's happy. You're getting them configured and set up. You're uninstalling all their spyware stuff. It's great. It's not a big deal. Downside to it is, obviously, if you're logging out or you reboot your computer or you close the browser, you're out of luck and you have to then reconnect. That can be a problem. But outside of that, it's free, it's cross-platform, and it works, and I really recommend checking it out. Super simple to do. You can also check out Teamviewer as well. But again, I challenge anything to run as smoothly as this did. I connected from two completely separate locations, two separate IP addresses, and it was just, I couldn't get over how flawless it was. Over two reasonably good connections. Looks great, runs well. Definitely check it out. Back to you guys.
And that brings us to the end of this week's spectacular broadcast. I want to thank everyone for tuning into us this week. You can find all of our content over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. There's a forum at jupitercolony.com. You can go to facebook.com. There's a thing there. There's we're on Google+. You can find us there. I'm over at lunduke.com. Chris is over at unfiltered.me or something like that.
Filterfree.me.
Filterfree.me.
Jupiterbroadcasting.com.
Filteryourwater.info.me. That's where he's at, and that covers it.
You know what we should say is the Matt how-to segment was awesome, and he's got a whole new batch he's going to do, and I want to say thank you to System 76 and the Wild Dog Performance System that Matt's been banging out these how-tos on. Great how-to. Brian, you didn't get to see it because we didn't roll it live, but he had a way to use Chrome to remote control two machines through Windows or through Linux. Doesn't matter. It was beautiful.
I don't believe it.
And it was brought to you by System 76 and the amazing Wild Dog.
Those jerks at System
Performance.
76. Jerks. So I told you, remember last week they screwed with me a little bit.
Yeah.
So the guy, remember that Leopard Extreme Beautiful Tower review we did? I mean, I just love that rig. And it was so painful when we had to send that back to them. So painful.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, it's a huge rig. We sent it back.
Yeah.
And the guy who put it together at System 76, he works there. He assembled that particular machine. He sends me this little message, kind of taunting me. He's like, it's sitting right here. It's beautiful. And he's like, I put that one together. And I'm like, damn you. And then, and so I was like, oh, damn you. Then he posts another one, a picture of it sitting on his desk.
No!
Yes. And he's basically like, hey, look at this. Merp.
He's screwing with you.
Yeah. So it turns out I got some more information from other coworkers of his over at System 76. This particular jerkwad apparently does this all the time. He just goes around. What he does is he sees people who are hurting inside, who don't have a Leopard Extreme Tower, who have a car with a broken engine or something like that. And he goes up to them and he's like, here's some salt in your eyes and in your wounds.
Whoa. Wounds. Yikes.
Wounds, man.
All right,
wounds.
Man. Take a breath.
Wounds.
It's okay.
Wounds.
So you can catch the Linux Action Show live over at jblive.tv.
There's space in here.
I know.
You can fit a really big tower.
A nice, powerful, fast tower. We do these shows live over jblive.tv at 10 a.m. Sundays, and then we release it for later. Of course, this episode will be out a little late because we had an outage and now we're running behind, but you know what? It all works out in the end.
I don't know what it does.
Well,
I'm just sad now.
I know.
I want to go home and be sad.
I want to go home and cuddle a System 76 machine that you don't have.
I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go cuddle my really outdated rig.
Yeah.
All
right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's
Probably
episode
gonna get another message from this week.
of the Linux Action Show.
Probably be on a beach in Hawaii with a picture of the little Leopard Extreme Tower, just cuddling it.
And we'll be right back here next week. Are you done horsing around over there?
I love berries in my mouth also. Ready?
Let's do it. Cooking berries.
Loves it. We're cuddling after this, right?